this gets marked up a certain way with balance line and angles and stuff, and then you just translate the material using your fashion proportions. And then you've got your croquis. Okay, we have a croquis or a pose in a magazine that we want to copy for a fashion pose. And you may think if you just trace it, it'll work, but it won't. It will look very fat and short, and strangely enough, she looks great, but not if you make her a fashion figure. So the way that I work this is I measure from the edge of the paper to the pit of her neck, which is right where the clavicle and the, can't remember all the stuff, thorax or something comes together. So about right there. So I will measure, looks like 1 and almost, my measurements are like 7/8, I guess is what it would be, 1 7/8. So I'll go down to the bottom and do a 1 7/8 as well, so that I have a totally vertical balance line. And the balance line is literal and figuratively. She literally has a plumb line from the pit of her neck straight down. And if she isn't balanced literally, she will look like she's tipping over, as well as probably will tip over. And so sometimes when you get a figure that looks a little wonky and you can't figure out why, it's probably because she's not true to the balance line. So then I put my pencil there. Because I'm right-handed, can you see this way? You might want to go on the other side. I mean, just on it. From the top of her head clear down through the bottom, she has a balance line now. And we can see, the balance line is not the same thing as the center front. So the center front we can see over here going off a little bit. But I'm going to balance out that. And you're going to have to, you're going to have to kind of fill in the gaps here when I'm talking. Okay, I'm going to find the angles of her shoulder. And you can also see on her face that her face is just slightly tipped to the right, to her left side, which is the high hip. And if you stand and you shift your weight, your head goes in the same direction as your weight. So it's just kind of a little, sometimes it's just a little subtle thing, but it keeps it from looking stiff and static. Okay, so I'm doing the lines for her shoulder, so I try to find the end of the clavicle here. And I will have just a slight variation from being, can't think of the word. Level, yeah, and perpendicular to that line. So now I've got hips over here going this way, and I'm going to try, this is the great trochanter here, the widest part of the hip, and so I'm going to try and find that over there, and it's probably pretty much where her leg bends and where the hip bends, so I've got an angle there. So this center front will be perpendicular to this shoulder angle because the spine curves but the bones don't change. So that's just slightly off, and this one will be perpendicular to the hip angle, and they will meet somewhere at the waist. So there's my waist, and it's probably going to go in the same direction as the hip because the hip bones are connected to the you know what and whatever. Okay, so then the one thing that's going to make this really fun is from out here at the great trochanter into her ankle bone. That's a straight line. So I've got from here to here into the inside of the ankle bone, and then the foot is going to come a little bit there. I also want to get the level of the feet so that it looks like she's actually stepping forward with that one foot. Can you see everything?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And then the knees. The knees are going to be the same, probably for this one. They may not always be the same, but they'll be parallel to the hip because, again, the thigh bones aren't going to change length. They're just going to change balance. And then I like sometimes to just get angles of legs so that I get a little bit of variety in there. This one comes out over to here, so the calf is coming over here. I just reference, these are just reference lines. So I've got the shoulder coming out to here, and if you straighten this out, it would be at the waist. So we know that. So this one that is foreshortened over here, it's going to be the same length. So I'm going to measure this one, and it's about there on my pencil. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to start doing this little square triangle at the elbow there so that I have the right length arm. And then this one, just barely off. Now the hands, I have knuckles to give me an arc. I have the fingers here to give me an arc. But because drawing each individual finger makes them look really weird sometimes because it's so small, I just group fingers together. So I might have these 3 fingers together and this one separate. The thumb going behind, which I won't even see. So I would have those 3 fingers together. So when I draw this, I will move these up a little and just draw the front one. I'll show you that later. Okay, I want to get the center front of the mouth and the eyes are off center. Just a minute, I can't see this. And I want to see just about how much off center they are. They're actually about the same distance here. What I find in drawing is that there's so many corollaries. You mix this to match that, to go here, to do this, and it's like, oh, look how those all line up. I was staring at somebody. You have to be a people watcher, I'm sure you know that. And I was staring at somebody in church one day, and I noticed that their eye lined up with their throat. Now, it doesn't always happen, but I thought, ooh, look at that. So next time I did it, I lined up the throat, the angle of the throat with the eye, and it was like, that was fun. So it doesn't always apply, but so basically what I'm doing here, and you have to fill in the words that I'm not saying too, I get a little. The other thing I want to know is that my wrist is actually right here on the hip. I've got an angle for the knuckles there, 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 so I've got a few little reference points there. The point of the elbow is kind of straight across from in here. Notice the underarm, this muscle connects to, and I can't remember those muscles, but then we have the, I can't remember the muscles, you guys. I'm getting old.
Pectoral?
The what?
Pectoral?
Yes, thank you. That's it, right there. Okay. And that's a really crucial thing to remember to draw because that underarm gets very vague and then it's like, what's going on there? It just kind of mushed together. The other part that's some people have the ribs showing a little bit up here on the chest. So sometimes you can put a little shadow with marker or something up there. Okay, so basically what I've done is I've organized my croquis or my she's not my croquis. Croquis is a guide figure. She's my reference material. Okay, I've organized my reference so that as I look across there, if I want to fill in any more, I can. But, okay, one thing just occurred to me. We've got a negative space here, 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 and here. So I want to kind of look for that negative space. And I'm sure you've heard this before, but if you draw the negative space, the positive space is already drawn. You've already drawn the inside of it there. So she's my reference material. I'm going to set her over here to refer to her. And on this paper, I have drawn these proportions for a 9-head figure, 8-point figure, or 9-head figure, whatever. I've called it different things throughout the career. So Louise has this paper, and you can, when you change the proportions of a fashion figure, you change them from the knee down. Don't change the whole leg. And because if you change the whole leg, lengthen the thigh too much, the clothes get distorted. You don't want that skirt to look much longer than it really is. So you can change the knees, and nobody has calves that long. But the calves are usually even a little shorter than the thigh, I think. I can't remember. But you can lengthen the figure from there down. So I have an 8-head figure, the ankles there, 9 and 10. So 9 and 10. So that's where you want to remember to lengthen the figure, is from the knee down. So I'm using these proportions, and I've translated them to a line over here. I measured from the edge of the paper to the center, which gives me my balance line again. I want a totally vertical plumb line. Blue pencil. So I now have reference. Can you see the little dots on there that I've drawn? I don't know what you can see. So those are my reference points. So now I'm going to start translating information. So I feel like I should move this thing that's right in front of me, because visually it feels like I'm stepping on something. All right, so the heads are about 1 inch long. I want to go off to the side here. So I'm going to go about 1/8 of an inch off and make her the center of her face. Now, the other thing is, you kind of need to memorize or have in your head how wide everything is. If you don't know how wide it is, it's going to go all over the place. So the shoulders are about 3/4 of an inch on either side of the balance line. The head is about 3/4 of an inch. So you're doing 2 head widths for your shoulders. The head is 2/3 longer than it is wide. So these are just things that I've memorized that make your figures consistent. So now I have my head, center front of my head over here, and it's level. So it isn't tipped, it's level. So that's a good help. So I'm going to draw my line here for my head, and it's actually, why isn't that an inch? It's actually a little shorter. Oh, because I didn't use this line right here.
You're just using 8 by 11
8.5 by 11 paper, yeah. I only ever use marker paper, copy paper, but when I'm doing markers, I will often use jet ink, jet paper. It has a slicker surface, and the markers work really well on it. So I still stick to marker paper. I used to get all into other papers, and it was just like, this is great, this works just fine. I don't have to buy marker paper, just buy a ream of, what I used to have my students do was buy a ream of like 500 sheets of copy paper, inkjet and then divide it, like 5 of them go in together and each have 100 sheets or something like that. So on either side of the center line now, I'm going to erase this one so I don't get confused, because that's the original balance line, and there's still a 1/2 inch down here, sorry if I go all over the place. That is the pit of the neck. That has to stay on the balance line. So you can see that in this case, her neck is going slightly off at an angle there. So I'm going to have her neck just going slightly off there. Okay. Either side of this center line is 3/4 of an inch. And these rulers are invaluable because you can see right through them. So there's her face. Now who can tell me where the eyes are placed on the face?
Direct center.
Yes, thank you. I can't hear you. It's not that I'm questioning
Sorry.
your answer. Like, what did you say? No, and usually I don't mess around with the 5 eyes across and all that kind of stuff. I've kind of simplified it. So the eyes go right in the center, and if there's a little less on the outside, that doesn't bother me. The mouth I put right in the middle of that, from the eye to the chin. I make the top of the top lip, so there's like, sort of like that for the mouth. Because if you do the real thing like the nose is the least important feature on the face. The nose isn't going to sell any clothes. So I just put a little tiny thing there, and I can add a shadow later if I want to or something. The hairline is about the top 1/8, so the line that I had in there originally is going to work for the hairline. And their chin just a teeny bit square at the bottom. I can go in for cheekbones, whatever I want to do here. I usually make the widest part of the jaw the widest part of the mouth, so that the bone structure is good. Let's see, I want to color in the top lip and the shadow under the bottom lip. And I'm probably doing more than I would normally do. To create a fashion croquis, you just need mark, and then you can change the looks and everything there. So now I've got basically my neck, and now I want the angle of my shoulders. So sometimes I will lay this straight next to it, just if that angle seems a little weird. And then I'll lay my ruler on this angle and just translate it over to here. And you can exaggerate a little, but don't get too crazy, because then it just gets the clothes get too distorted. And all we're doing is creating a hanger for our clothes with attitude. We have a hanger with attitude. So we're going to sell whatever the clothes are. We're going to try to give the hairdo and stuff, just a hint of that mood, but we're not going to concentrate. We're not selling hairstyles, and we're not selling makeup. We're just selling clothes. So let's keep it, focused on the clothes. So now I'm going to go over to my waistline, so this is 1.5. The waist is 3 inches down. I've somehow lost my mark there. So I'm going to see that the waist is just slightly off center, like maybe over here. It should be parallel or perpendicular to the pit of the neck there. So there's my waist right there. And my waist is about the same width as the head. very skinny. But I'm going to make it maybe just a little bigger. So I'm going to go over here and do maybe 7/8 there. But it's usually about 3/8 on each side, or 3/4 of an inch, whatever. And my shoulders are 3/4 of an inch on each side. So I'm going to draw a line from my shoulder to my waist. And again, these are starting out like stick figures. And then the apex, the bust point to bust point, is about 1/2 inch down from there, or wherever you want it along there. I can't remember what that is. Let's see if I've got it here. The apex is 2 inches down. Okay, so 2 inches down. So this is the apex right here. Then that goes parallel with the shoulders too. And just kind of in the center, center to center. And you don't want to draw like U-shaped things here, so we're just going to start our little, what was that muscle?
The pectoral.
Pectorals. Okay, so we're going to go out here and just kind of start to shape this a little. And the bust point is usually used for pattern making, so it doesn't really... Okay, I'm going to put my little sockets in there, and they're about 1/4 of an inch long. So under here, pecs, under here, rib cage is in here. You can go in a little or out a little, whatever you want to do with the rib cage, and this is where those ribs would be. Now the neck is obviously looking kind of scarecrowy there. So about halfway in, down the neck, I will draw my lines over this way, and then curve the neck and go around the shoulder bones. So, and I keep my neck fairly skinny to start with. I can make it wider. You could even draw a stick figure with these same proportions, and you could hang your clothes on them if you had the right width of the shoulders and everything. So this is going to come down with the sternocleidomastoid, which comes from behind the ear and moves your neck around. The ears, again, are, your eyebrows are up here, and the ears are from the top of the eyebrows to the tip of the nose, basically. So just so you kind of get some things to hang earrings on, so you know they're in the... If you don't have anything with the ears drawn on them, but you want earrings, just start them at the bottom of the nose, and you'll have the right placement. Okay, now, one of the fun things about this sassy little pose is that hip thrown way out there. So let's check and see just how far out that is. So I'm going to do another line here, because if you don't get it that far, it's not going to be fun. And the reason you picked this pose, or the reason I picked this pose, is because it looked like it was fun. So this is the whole shoulder width apart. I mean, the whole shoulder socket. I can't think and draw very well, but that's what I'm trying to do here. So here's my socket, kind of at the end, kind of halfway up the side of the side of the figure. Sorry. Okay, just a minute. Let me think what I was doing here.
Figuring out the width of the hips.
Yes, thank you.
I do
Okay,
it too.
very good, very good. There, that's exactly what I was trying to do, which turns out to be almost an inch away from that. I'm going to exaggerate and make it an inch away from the balance line. So I want my hip to jet clear out here. So that means I want this to somehow come all the way over here. So I want my hip, which is right there, to be at this angle. Now we're going to have to adjust her a little bit. I can see that she's a little, let's do this. And I've got these lines in here so that I can do that. Okay, so she's longer torso than she is. So we have things to adjust here. So hip bones are about about 1/4 of an inch below the waist. So we've got the hip bones coming over here. Great trochanter is over here. I might have to move it in just a little. I hate to, but I can move it out if I want. But this one is almost, it is in further than here. So this hip is actually further than the rib, closer to the center than the rib cage. And look how straight that line is from right under the bust to the knee, almost a straight line. So you just kind of analyze all this. Okay, so where am I here? Straight line down here. So this side comes in and kind of comes back, and this side goes way over there. So now I've got kind of that angle, great trochanter, and I know this leg comes clear back over. I'm going to make my ankle here, I think, which is about an 8 head figure, maybe, or whatever. Okay, so there's my ankle right there. And I'm going to draw my line straight over to the outside of the hip so that I get that drama. That's the drama that I want. And so the knee is actually up in here. Is this the knee here? 4 inches down? Yeah. That was 6, but I think it was upside down. Okay, let's see, 4 inches down, 6 inches down. Yeah, the knee is 6 inches down. Okay, so here's my knee up here somewhere, kind of on the inside of that. And then the other knee is at the same kind of angle as the hip a little bit, maybe a little more extreme actually, because that foot is forward. So I think it might be maybe a little more extreme. And it's kind of straight down on that line. So here's my other knee over here. And so this leg comes out here, this leg comes over here, and across over here. So we're going to the outside of the calf, inside of the ankle. This ankle bone is lower on the outside and a little softer. So there's that. The knee, slight, and comes back in here. So now we've got, okay, I'm jumping all over the place here. This angle here, I've probably made a little more extreme, but it does go to the other side of the balance line. You can see it crosses over the balance line here. So we're just exaggerating this, but we've got the crotch is below that and comes up a little above your great trochanter, because these are your hip bones up here. Tummy button, blah, blah. Okay, so this one, there's probably a line in there, and this thigh round at the top and then thin. So it's kind of smoothed out. Keep the knees slim. You can kind of curve this according to musculature as you go. As you know, as you understand musculature, you can do that. And I took life drawing classes and all kinds of stuff so that I could really register the muscle structure. Okay, so then this one's going to come here, and this one's going to come curved around under the knee, calf slightly. This line often goes right into the outside of the ankle. You'll find connections that make sense to you in your drawing, and this is where people start stylizing things. They see where the muscles connect and the angles that they're at, and they kind of take the figure and make it their own. You know, they kind of simplify and all that stuff. So right now, I feel like she's pretty much in the same pose. Her weight is balanced on the correct sides of the balance line to give her that little angle. If you don't get them that far off, you don't have the drama that you're looking for. And you don't want too much distortion of the figure because you're really drawing close. So you don't want them to get too far off. Just enough to make it fun. Okay, so on the balance line, these ankles are quite angled. They're even, it's like it gets this, this, and this down here. So whatever this is going to be more. I'm just going to put my inside ankle bone over here. And I want to make sure, here's the outside of my foot. And this is still, feet are still tricky for me. I still have to stop and think and really, angle, check the angles out. And I'm probably not going to. I look for things like this is straight down. Okay, so let's make sure that's straight down. Then this angle is like that. Okay, it's much more angled than I have it. And this then comes up to the large toe, and then, okay, now that feels a little bit more like it is. So you kind of have to double check yourself, because the things you don't like are usually the things you haven't taken enough thought with and kind of checked out the angles. Okay, so that may not be exactly right, but that's going to work for now. And then you've got the shoe. And I can't leave stuff alone. Once I start working on it, it's like, oh, I have to keep messing with it. Okay, so this shoe, this toe, we know is probably a good, at least 1/4 of an inch below it.
It fell into your lap.
On my lap? No, it's probably on the floor. Can you see it?
You're just using a blue colored pencil?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, no, my ruler. I'm trying to, thank you, Louise. Okay, so about 1/4 of an inch. I'm going to do 3/8 just for fun. No, I better stick to 1/4 of an inch. Okay. Okay, I think that my ankle bone here is higher there, so I think this one's probably about down here. So ankle bone and the back of the heel straight down and about 1/4 of an inch below that. Okay, so I've got a point here. So let's see, the outside of the calf comes straight down into here. So outside of the calf comes straight down into here. And this is where my point is, from there to there. And then the outside ankle bone, let's say down there. So I need to mess with this foot a little bit more. But I'm not going to right now, but I need to. If I were really gonna, be serious about this being a croquis, I would have to double check this area. I haven't drawn for a long time, and I'm not picking up on this stuff right now.
Gosh, you wouldn't know that.
Oh.
It's beautiful.
Thank you.
I can't talk and draw at the same time.
No, it's really hard to concentrate. I'm missing stuff. I'm thinking, what am I saying? What am I looking at?
Well,
Okay.
I want to stop talking for a minute, but I also don't want you to turn off the vocals. So.
Okay. Well, okay, now I'm going to go back. I'm going to leave that. I admit that it needs a little bit more perfection, juggling around, whatever. Okay, I'm going to go up here and look at this negative space right here in this arm. It's going to have to be longer, and that's one of the reasons that you can't just photograph something and copy it and whatever, because everything is elongated. So this shape will not be this shape. It will be an elongation of that shape. It will have this angle here. It will have this angle here under the arm. It will have this angle here. And this will line up with, and usually I have found that women who are long-legged are short-waisted. So their waists are usually, they have less torso. But we have equal torso. We've stretched her out so that she's equal instead of short-waisted. You can change those proportions if you need to for your own particular uses, but normally the angles will still apply. So I'm going to, again, check this angle out, because if I don't get the angle right, I'm not going to get the shape right. So I'm going to make sure.
So you're lining
What?
You're lining up the reference material on top of the drawing.
The angles, yeah. I don't care that it's exactly
Parallel to get
right.
the angles of the bones.
That sounds right. And see, I had this angle thinking that was good, and when I actually put this on here, it's even more of an angle. It's even a different angle. So I want to be sure that I can get that angle. It's close, but it was a little less. Okay. So then I'm going to get the angle from this, and the two should intersect. Now the hand is over here. So let's block the hand in. It's a shape that goes down to the outside of the hip, and wherever this angle is, it's going to match that one. So let's get this angle in here and see where wherever that hits the hip, that's almost the outside of the hand. So let's see what happens there. And sometimes, is that parallel? Okay, so sometimes, let's go there. Okay, so there's my angle for my arm. So I've got this line here. The hand starts right here, so this is elongated slightly. The hand is down here. This is the back of it, the bottom of it. This is the outside of the elbow here, basically. So my shape is going to be in here. So I've messed this up quite a bit here, but I know that the fingers are right at the waist, and they are at an angle. There's one, and here are all the others all together. So this one's a little bit longer, this one's shorter, and they come up here, and they rest here, and this comes over here, and there's the finger. So if I draw them like that, I can still get the fingers in, but I don't have to worry about them getting all distorted like little fat piggies or something else. So I can draw this one, And then I can draw all of these together. And I can put a little line in there if I want to. But it looks really great. But I want to keep it really simple and just kind of shape. So there's one. I know the next one's a little bit longer and the next one's a little bit shorter. So if I come in and do something like that, I can then, I've blocked them in, I can do as much work as I want to define them. And usually I use a 0.0 pen, 0.5 pen, really the smallest they make, so that I can get the detail that I want both on the face and everything. And we decided the knuckles were right here, almost lining up with the hip, the first knuckle there. So the hand comes down from that. So there's the second knuckle and there's the outside. So if you match your angles there, you can just fill in the spaces. So don't think of individual fingers, think of shapes. So that shape is like this kind of a triangle, that shape is something else. Okay, so underneath here and then this comes up to here, and then this comes around here. And that might be a little bit more like in that. So depending on, that might come out a little further, and there's my angle. So to me, with a few little adjustments here and a few little tweaks here and there, that doesn't look right. But I'm not going to worry too much about it because it's pretty straight actually after you get through the shoulder muscle. But this muscle under here is kind of tricky. So there's the back of the arm and there's the front of the arm and the pec. Okay, can you see the difference there in those two angles? So that's something you want to be sure you pick up on, especially if you're drawing swimwear, lingerie, or evening wear, that you're going to see those shoulders. Okay, now this angle we decided was just barely out here. We know the elbow comes to the waist, so I'm just going to kind of drop it there. I'm going to create this little triangle here where it points down, and I might want to make that a little longer. The hand comes just to the side of the torso there, and it actually comes clear out to the end of the arm. So the hand is blocked in with these knuckles, this knuckle, that. And because it's foreshortened, I want to make sure that I don't get it too high. So it looks like the bottom of the hand comes just to the bottom of the bust line. So there's the bottom of it. Here's, okay, it's got to be lower. So you can see her shoulder there. It's about right there, about right there. Okay, so there's the foreshortened hand in front of the arm. And it's got an angle there, and an angle there, and another little angle there. And the inside of the palm is over here. Her hair would come up off here, and down in her face, off over here. It's about the same width as her forehead, so it's up quite a ways. You're always comparing one thing to another here. Parts over here, hair is pretty much up here. The whitest part of the head looks like it's just around the eyes. The hair, I mean. She's got earrings, so we want to definitely get those dropped down there. Boom, boom, boom. And she's got lots of makeup on, but I'm just going to simplify this. And you'd be surprised with just tiny little dots and smudges how you can get the drama of an eye. So I'm just going to do that. So I may just do it on one side. I may do it on both. I have a much easier time drawing on the right. When I try to go over to the left, it's very difficult. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I'll turn my paper upside down so that I can do it. So you found that true with your drawings. That one side of the head or something is very easy to draw, the other side not so much. I'm going to put a tiny little dot for the bottom of the nose. Her mouth is pretty wide and kind of open. I'm not close enough here, but she's got a nice full bottom lip, and so the shadow right under the lip is sometimes all you need. And if you're doing markers, use a skin tone a couple of times on it. Don't try red or anything. If you're going to go for red, use pencils just to start with, because it gets out of hand really quickly. So here's her shadow on her cheek, and it comes down under her cheek. I'm just gonna, the reason I like these pencils is because then you can just blend them. They just kind of smudge really neatly. The eye socket's gonna have some shadows, and I'm not drawing her eyes exactly like that. They're kind of closed a little bit. But I want her jaw to be distinctive. I don't want it to look like she's too skinny there. So I'm gonna do that little bit of shadow, and there's gonna be shadow on the hair. And I keep the hair blocked in shapes again, not individual strands, unless I'm doing it for a direction. So I might do something like maybe that, maybe a couple of those or something. But just generally speaking, I'm just gonna keep it a shape. So again, it's a little wider out here, and then comes back in and kind of lines up with her cheekbone actually. And the shadow on her neck, I studied magazine covers and magazines and shadow patterns until I came up with something that I programmed in my brain. The light is always coming from the top left side. The shadow is always on the right side as I draw it. So I just keep it that way because it's easier to be consistent. So even though she's probably lit from over here. Can you still see what I'm doing? If she's lit from over here, she's also lit from probably here, or you can't tell really if this is outdoor or if they've got screens up for the photo shoot and they're reflecting light off somewhere else. So be consistent with your own pattern for the shadows, because they could be all over the place in a photo shoot. And I'm gonna make this a little more shadowed over here too. Okay, I think I'll just leave that for right now. And it's just like in photography, you want that triangle sort of on that other cheek, and I'm just gonna keep it. So don't overwork an area. It's better to leave it undone than overworked. So now I've got this, I've got her hand up here, and I can adjust this as I go to draw it, and realize that this finger is almost horizontal. It doesn't go down as much as I've actually drawn it. So I'm going to keep these together. Let's see, that goes back a little further, and this is up a little further. Just kind of and you don't even need to that hand is a little big, I think. Smooth that off just a little bit. Down to here, kind of coming out here. And the one fun thing about drawing is you can always exaggerate the ruffles and stuff like that. Now she's got a little stress wrinkle there. When you do a bend wrinkle or a stress wrinkle, you want to make sure it shows on the outside of the fabric as well as the inside, because the fabric is scrunched. So something happens there. She's got some little wrinkles at the waist. You don't want to overdo them. So let's see, we've got a nice shadow that comes from here all along the whole side. A shadow here that shows the flat hip under the tummy. These just get to be just smears. This arm is, where's that hip? It's there. Sometimes where the clavicle hits the shoulder, there's a little bump right there too, which is kind of coming over here. So sometimes this fabric will go out and then down when it goes over the clavicle. So those kind of subtle things kind of give you the contour a little bit better. So the more you know, the more realistic. I think my style is somewhere like stylized realism, because I like the real musculature, but I still don't want to do it too fancy. Sometimes I'll get into something like that. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of indicate the purse here, because that's not my main whatever. Okay, so there's that. Okay, so right where the knee is down here, now this is pretty, probably has some Lycra in it because it's pretty form-fitting. Let's get that tummy a little bit more. This is kind of under there. Okay, so there's something that comes from, looks like about here over to the knee, and these are called stress folds. And it might be that she has a well-toned muscle right there or something. I don't think that's her knee, because I think her knee's down here a little further, but whatever. Okay, so this ruffle looks almost horizontal. It doesn't look like it's going at an angle. Usually your ruffle will go at the same angle as your hip because of the fabric, but I have a feeling that this is probably back and is changing it a little. So I'm going to make this just slightly here and kind of here. There's something that comes off the inside of this knee, ruffle there, ruffle down here. This one comes off there. So I'm just trying to get the little angles here, and they're exaggerated. This one comes off here. You can see the back of it a little bit. Sticks to her leg, comes back out here. You can also see the back of it. So I'm not going to get too into that. But there are seams or something, and when you're doing something like this, you start from the hemline so that they are even going up instead of, and if that's a seam and it's actually sticking out, you want to show something on the edge, even if it isn't that much. If it's actually a separate piece or it's got a pleat or something, you want to show the surface. So this would come over, that would come over one more there. Let's just design it like that. Okay, so you follow the contours of the ruffle. It looks like there's probably a seam there. When I was doing my designing and stuff, I would draw every detail that I could see or think of how it was constructed. So your pattern making is crucial, and draping is fun too, because then you understand why the darts hang where they do. And I saw my muslin up on a dress form, and I'm going, oh, look at the way those hang right there. Oh, that's the princess line. It finally registered, that that's where the wrinkles came from, or the darts, because you've got the princess line there. So, okay, so we can see this. We can see this ankle bone here. I'm going to change this a little here, bring this down, make it maybe a little shorter, just because visually that looks like it's way too far out of line. Bring this over here. That's dark. Legs here. And I would work with this a little bit more because I can feel that it just needs a little bit more detail, understanding, whatever. But I'm just going to put that in there for now. I know that foot's longer than that one. Okay, don't want to do that. I just want to do this. Okay, so shadow here, smudge, shadow here, smudge. And if you scan and do a grayscale, you've got it all done. You don't have to worry about inking it or anything. So basically, that would be the translation, my translation of this piece of scrap.
So
How does that look?
It's beautiful.
Thank you.
You use the tracing paper over the top of the croquis so you can reuse the croquis for something else?
Yes.
Okay.
Or a light table. If you use a light table, you can use your copy paper.
Yeah.
But the tracing paper is fun because it smears really nicely.
Okay.
And then you've got some real subtle little shadows, and you don't want anything to outshine the styles of the garment. The shadows are just to give you 3 dimensions, so you don't want to overdraw the hairstyle or over make up the mouth, or, if you're doing a close-up on a face, you can, you have kind of in your mind the general proportions of what it's supposed to be, and it should be a little longer than wide, and you know that the jawline's here, and there's the mouth opposite the jawline, the eyes are in the middle. So there are the eyes, and there's the nose, kind of anywhere, somewhere in between the mouth and the whatever, and the eyebrows up here. Shadow of the face. If you just get shadows and don't even do eyebrows or anything and just get shadows, you've got your face. So you don't even have to draw features. You can just kind of get your shadows in, and it says a face. Now, a lot of people will draw a face like this, and that's their head. But if you're going to do something that simple, at least put some kind of indication of features in there, even if it's just a line. And then you know where your hair goes. And I end up drawing a hairstyle like my own, just kind of a bob, depending on where you want it to end. Keep them classic, keep them simple, and then you don't date your garments. If you do a current hairstyle, you've told them when you designed it. If you keep it classic, it could be any time. It could be a 10-year period. So that's where I am. Anybody have any questions? So,
You don't usually ink your work in then?
well, you can see in the book that I did for Louise, at this stage, I just want my croquis to be, I might ink them. Okay, so this one, I think I left pencil on there. I think I just did it with pencil. But I'll use black pencil, black color erase pencil or Prisma. But sometimes I'll ink them in if I want to copy them, but you can just scan them and grayscale them. But there's really no reason to ink these in unless you're going to keep them forever and you want to make sure they don't fade away or whatever. But then I will use inks on my final sketch, this. I would probably, well, I'll tell you, to be honest, I love what pencil does, and I hate sometimes what ink does.
Yeah.
So I would rather almost pencil them and scale them, or scan them and grayscale them, than I would to ink them.
I have my students ink it in only because it encourages them to clean up the edges.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the edges are really
Yeah.
messy and almost like hair, you
Yeah.
know? But I wonder if there's some other way to encourage them to smooth out those lines a little bit without it
Well, I think
using ink.
what I will sometimes do to finish them up is I will use a black color erase pencil and just go over them. And you have a line quality if you do that. You have thick and thin and heavy and light,
Yeah.
and you can kind of give it some interest instead of just that consistent pen. But these are just my guides.
Okay.
So I encourage them to, you can do stuff with the clothes that you draw over them. But it depends on what you're using it for. I like the differences in the weight of the line and stuff like that. Thank
Yeah.
you. Okay, so Louise has given me a little, whoops, I just ruined it already. Well, where I am right now, I seem to prefer pencil, but I have gone in time, when I'm maybe more sure, I might use but I like what happens when you use a pencil. I like the stuff that you can do with it.
Yeah.
And so over here, this might be out and then down. You might see a little bit of the arm under there. You might see these little tiny ribs kind of showing the top of the rib cage, maybe showing there, and just kind of blend that in. So, whatever you want. But this is a demonstration, and this is just casual. If I were really, it depends on what I'm using it for. If it was going into print, I would probably ink it. Maybe not. But the stuff that I've done for films and stuff for costume designers, I'll do their sketches for them. Those start out with a croquis. I start with a croquis, and I usually ink those in, and then I color them. So that's because they just have to be really defined.
Yeah.
But I just have fun putting makeup on,
I love that part too.
Yeah, it's really fun. So, but keeping it simple. And an eye, we know that an eye is basically, all this stuff goes on, and all this stuff goes on here and here and here, and all this stuff. But if you can just do like the lid with maybe some crazy little eyelashes and just a little hint of an eyeball, and that tells it too. That says smoky eye or whatever. Any other questions?
Are you tired or are you feeling creative, like you want to color one?
If you have a color one,
Well, you
okay.
have to.
If I were going to color one, okay, good point. I would ink it and make copies because I don't want to ruin the first one.
Okay.
So I would test And I have done that before too, where I've colored them and then I wish I could have changed that color. I don't like that color.
Yeah.
So it's really nice to be able to do it on the computer. I've had students who get to this point and scan and then color and see what they like. And if you've got one of these tablets, my grandson here at Avery, he has a great tablet thing. Can you color on that? Okay, so then you can test your colors out and shadows and drop it. I used to be able to do all the stuff on Photoshop, but I can't remember it anymore. But you know, where you do, oh, there's terms I can't remember. Okay, so yes, if I were doing this for color, I would make copies and color it probably, unless I was really sure. But once you color it, you can't use it for anything else.
Right.
So this one, I never draw clothes over it. This croquis stays just a croquis, just my guide figure. And as Louise has shown you, I've got books and books of guide figures. So I can usually pick, I did a job for my niece who works for Feld Entertainment, who designs costumes, used to design costumes for the circus, but now she does them for Feld, and they don't have the circus anymore. So she does them for other shows that they develop and work overseas. So she had me do a whole group of things. I think there were 16 sketches that she designed, and I sketched for her for a cruise ship. They were going to do shows, you know, musical shows and stuff like that on a cruise ship. So we had all these different poses that she wanted, and I had a whole slew of croquis that I could just pop into those particular poses. And the one I think of, she wanted someone jump roping, like a tween or a young woman jump roping, and I thought, oh, I've got just the pose for that. I'd never used it for anything, but she was kind of dancing like this. And so I just put jump ropes in her hand and
So-
gave her the little, you know, stuff. So some of them are more animated than I would use for fashion. I never used it for fashion because it was never appropriate. It was too animated, but it was perfect for jump roping. So if
do
you
do
just,
that every time you draw a croquis then? You just create another croquis
Yeah.
and add it to your book of...
exactly. If I
That's
see a
cool.
pose in a magazine, like when Louise showed me this particular pose, I thought, oh, that's a great pose. She's just
Yeah.
sassy enough that she's got some animation. So I liked it. So I thought, okay, that's the one I want to draw. So I like the results. And if I didn't have that hip out there equal or beyond the shoulder, it wouldn't work. So people don't play with those angles enough. They look at it and think they know where it belongs. I've had more students bring croquis to me that are just static. Even though their pose is all over the place, they're still just standing still, hugging the center line there. And I say, where's your balance line?
I don't know.
What's a balance line? Pretty basic, you know. So if you forget the basics, you're not going to get the results you want. That's basically it. You like that pose, you want your clothes on that person. If you had a real model, I've drawn from live models, and it's very tricky for me to do that because I'm at this angle, someone else is at that angle. I don't like the angle where I am. I want to move over here, but someone else is sitting there, so I can't draw her from that pose. So this works really well for me, just great poses online or something like that, or magazines. But they have to be clear enough so I can totally understand them. So, coloring. I think we're through. Are we through? Do you want color? I started at 81, so I've taught about 35, almost 35 years,
Okay.
32 years, something like that.
Yeah.
And this is a collection of stuff from way back then. Some of it I've eliminated till just a few years ago when I finally quit teaching in 2013.
Okay.
So, okay, that's cute. Okay. So when I was teaching the class, I would have them do different materials. So this particular material would have been fall, kind of winter things. So this was going to be my color book. I had all kinds of ideas at all different times. So I had one croquis, and I called her Cora Croquis because her proportions were just a little bit less leg, because they get too high fashion if they've got too much leg on them. So I kind of shrunk the legs down a little from the knee, of course. And okay, let's just see something here. So I drew these kind of stylized little faces and everything on them, so that they would look like the same person, sort of. When I have my students do a collection, I have them do the same person in all of the garments, just because that's who I'm designing for. That's my target market. So let's see here. Ooh, cashmere. I haven't used that color yet. Cashmere is pretty. It's too yellow though. Okay, I'll stick with the E33. Okay, so this is this is Copic sand. Do you guys say Copic or Copic?
I say Copic.
Because I think in Asia they do one or the other. In England they do Copic, and I think we do Copic, but I do Copic. It just says Copic to me. I don't. Anyway, so I will. If you're coloring, you put the. If you're layering your markers, you use the dark color. I use the dark color first. So I shade them first. I let it completely dry. I do something else. If you're blending your colors, you do them wet on wet. So I've got this one. I'm going to try to get this little bit of cheekbone in there, a little bit of shadow over here, a little under here, maybe the top lip. This eye socket is usually shaded, and I've usually got something coming down from the forehead, and just kind of, so that might be my my first layer, just kind of getting the shadow in. I'm going to shade under the chin here too. I don't have to do anything else because she's got stockings and gloves and all kinds of stuff on here. So I'm going to let that sit for a minute. I might even use a lighter shade. She's kind of a cartoon character, so she doesn't look so. I might just give her a little bit of. I'm gonna, I don't know if I can really pull this off right now because I'm sort of,
We don't have to. Whatever you want to do.
it's just what I can do anymore. It's not what I want to do a lot. It's really fun. Okay, let's just do a little bit of fur. I'm gonna take some neutrals and just kind of plop them in the dark areas. And I want this wet on wet, so I'm gonna blend it while it's still wet. These are warm grays. I like warm grays. I can use them for taupes and stuff like that. They're just really fun. So I'm going to kind of try to get that as my core fur and kind of blend it out. And it should kind of kind of fuzz it up a little bit when it's wet on wet. Excuse me. Wow. My eyes are gone. Okay, so that kind of softens it when you do it wet on wet. If you put the dark on first and use it with the light, it's kind of like a neutral, whatever. I can't think of the word. Okay, let's do some. I'm going to use the same colors over and over here. Let's do the quilted jacket. So in the quilted jacket, there's going to be a little pattern over here where the shadow from the quilt is going to kind of, depends on how thick it is. This is kind of a flatter quilt, so I'm just going to shade this side here. And these patterns have been, I found books, Bina Abling makes some really nice books and really good color and stuff, but I have just been looking in books for years and kind of pulling things together, and pretty soon they become your own. I have my students do 10 exercises in a row. And they go, oh, I did one. I showed you I could do it. Yeah, that's not the point. The point is to establish that in your head. So if you do it 10 times, you have it kind of in there. You can pull it out anytime you want. So then I might soften that up a little and bring that color in. But I try to leave a white spot on the paper for the highlight. If you can leave your paper, that's the best highlight you can get. If you don't use markers you have to think dark to light. On regular painting, you can start, you think light to dark. That's what you do the opposite of what you're doing for the painting. So you kind of have to think where my white spots are going to be. And you use all the art principles and elements and everything that you know from every art class you've ever taken. Ash rose, that's pretty. I love these neutral colors here. Okay, so I'm going to go back on her face now and see if I can put in that lighter Where's the skin tone here? I'm going to use a lighter marker and try that on her skin instead of, I could use 2 layers of this sand, but I think I'm just going to stick to this and see what happens. I try to leave a little white spot on the tip of her nose, and I try to leave a little white spot wherever I might want highlights. I can go in with a gel marker and put it in later, but if I do that, sometimes, you know, sometimes that's what I have to do because I've missed the spot there. So that blends the face together. If I want a little more color on it, I might come in with a pencil and just kind of, and I do think of makeup application when I'm doing this kind of thing too. I actually put makeup like I would put it on a real person. And I darken it a little bit around her head, just because that's probably going back and creating some kind of a little. Okay, I've run out of steam.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah,
so
I think I'm maybe another, because I don't do all of this at once. I mean, the coloring is
I
like
know.
weeks.
I just shifted
Yeah.
gears all over the place on you.
But
It's just so fun to watch.
thank you. The lines, this one is drawn this way with little vague lines because that's a furry ear muff, and so I just dot the lines so I know kind of where I want it. But the contour lines of all the garments tell you what texture is inside. So this is furry, this is like shearling. You know, you do indicate in your drawing. I'm really detailed on that. Some people can do it with just texture, but I love that contour line. So these are argyle. So let me just do, I'm just inspired now to do argyle, just a minute. So we know that the pattern in an argyle is a diamond shape. So I drew this so that I could put my argyle in. And I won't do all of it, but I just wanted to do enough so that you can see that it's argyle. And then there'll be a different one. I'm making a mess here, Louise. Okay, so then I would take a pencil and I would have references for all of my textures. So I would have references so that I could establish these patterns and duplicate them. And the legs would also be shaded. I put my shading in first sometimes. So there'd be shading under the skirt and under the knee and on the inside of the calf, so that I get that sense of roundness. So I will shade first and then I'll draw my clothes on them. Okay, I'm really through now.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I
Did you get what you needed?
Yes.
Okay.
I did make a copy of this one. You can stop now if you want.
No, this is fine. You want her shaded, just her skin shaded?
Just her skin,
Okay.
as if she were going to wear a swimsuit.
Okay, well, I
A
probably
bikini.
won't be able to talk
That's okay.
while I do it because I have to think. Let's see,
I
I'll
just
use-
want to watch you do
What's
it.
this color? Oh, cotton pearl, yeah. Okay, shading first. Shadows first.
How often do I get to watch you draw, Karen?
Yeah. I'm not too sure here what I'm. Okay, let's
It
see.
doesn't have to be perfect.
Yeah, I just want to. Sometimes I'll put these in on something like this. That hand, this underarm. Let's see. Probably halfway. There's a little connector where the clavicle connects there, and this is usually all in shadow. Okay, I'm not sure that this is. Tummy, hip bones, probably coming around for the tummy. Okay, I'm going to stop there. Fill this in.
What color is that?
This is cotton pearl, and I've never used it for skin before, but it looks pretty good with sand. And I'm just trying to blend these colors together here. Usually I just use a lighter E. This is an E00, and I'd probably use light sand or something like that to go with it. And since I don't have a suit on her, I'm not going to do any cleavage or any kind of thing that, because I don't know what's going to happen. But on the top of the leg, sometimes I will leave a bit of white. But it's always dark under the knee. And there's a line missing on this too that I didn't put in here. There should have been something like right in there. Now, if her arms weren't folded, I'd show an indication of the rib cage and the center front a little bit more there. But I think that would give me, if I were going to draw a suit on top of that, I'll just kind of follow the bathing suit thing that we had, or the evening wear thing that we had there. I would just probably do that and then just do the color of the suit, whatever. So if there's no detail that I need to show at the waist, then I could cross the arms. If I need to show what's going on there, I wouldn't. And so she's obviously got long, dark hair. She has to have long, dark hair. Or maybe she's got a ponytail, but whatever. She might have bangs.
That is so beautiful. And it's simple.
Let's see, maybe a hair, whatever. Always dark behind the neck. So, making sure it looks like it actually goes behind her. Looks a little messy.
In a good way.
Flip-flops. Okay, I'm through. Thank you.